On the night of January 18th, 2025, a suburban street in Carrollton, Texas, sat entirely still under the cold winter sky. Inside one of the homes, a woman was out running evening errands, completely oblivious to what was unfolding on her front porch. At roughly 9:30 p.m., her phone buzzed with a motion alert from her Ring doorbell camera. When she tapped the notification to view the live feed, she wasn't met with a package delivery or a lost neighbor. Stepping out of the darkness was a figure dressed entirely in black. Over his head, he wore a bright red mask depicting Baphomet, the horned goat entity synonymous with occult imagery. The stark contrast between the vibrant red mask and the pitch-black night was visually jarring, but it was what he carried in his hands that made the scene truly stomach-churning. Without uttering a single word, the masked figure stepped onto the welcome mat. He leaned in toward the lens, ensuring the red goat mask was fully framed by the camera's infrared night vision. Then, he reached out, pressed the doorbell, and set the sign down against the front door, facing outward. He then proceeded to knock once on the door, simply turned around and vanished back into the shadows of the neighborhood street before the household owners could comprehend what they were really looking at. When the terrified homeowner opened her app to read the sign, it contained a single ominous reference: Revelation 20, verse 1 to 15. For those unfamiliar with biblical eschatology, Revelation 20 is the chapter detailing the final judgment, the binding of Satan in the abyss, the resurrection of the dead, and the lake of fire where the damned are subjected to eternal torment. Overwhelmed with panic, the homeowner immediately contacted the Carrollton Police Department. But when officers arrived to inspect the porch, they ran into a frustrating legal reality. The figure had not tried to force entry, he hadn't damaged any property, and because he hadn't crossed a physical barrier like a locked gate or ignored a no trespassing sign, he hadn't technically committed a crime. Setting an empty box and a sign on a front porch, regardless of how unsettling the imagery might be, fell into a legal grey area. The incident was shared on local neighborhood forums, sending shockwaves through the community. Who was the man behind the red goat mask? Was this a targeted warning aimed at the homeowner, a deeply disturbed religious fanatic, or an elaborate psychological prank executed by someone who knew the exact limits of the law? Public tracking on the case eventually went cold. The media dropped the story. No further sightings of the goat-masked prophet were reported in Carrollton, and the identity of the person who placed that apocalyptic warning on a stranger's porch remains entirely unknown. To this day, the homeowner lives with the lingering terror that the figure in black might one day return to finish whatever message he started. At 2:20 a.m. on March 7, 2019, a quiet residential street in Stockton, California, sat completely dark. Inside one of the homes, a family was fast asleep, unaware that a neighbor had walked up their front steps with a deadly payload. A sudden motion alert pinged on the family's Ring doorbell camera. When the live feed opened, it revealed a horrifying scene. A local 38-year-old man named Quan Pham was standing on their front porch. He was holding a large container and a cloth soaked in fluid. Without saying a word, Pham leaned over the front door, methodically pouring a heavy liquid all over the entryway, door frame, and welcome mat. He then pulled out a lighter, desperate to spark a massive fireball that would engulf the home while the entire family slept inside. Inside the house, a woman named Sandy woke up to a strange, heavy chemical odor permeating the hallway. Terrified, she rushed downstairs, woke up her family, and dialed 911. Fortunately, the house did not erupt into flames. Police later revealed that Pham had accidentally filled his container with diesel fuel instead of gasoline. Because diesel requires much higher temperatures and pressure to ignite than a simple lighter flame, his repeated attempts to light the porch failed, saving the home from burning down. Stockton police officers responded rapidly to the scene and arrested Quan Pham nearby. He was formally charged with arson, 5 counts of attempted murder for every family member asleep inside, and 2 counts of child endangerment. Neighbors later reported that Pham was known in the area for erratic behavior and banging on doors at night asking for money. But the exact motive behind his targeted attempt to burn down his neighbor's home was never revealed. It was October 19th, 2025, at roughly 1:11 a.m. The neighborhood was dead silent, bathed only in the dim orange glow of the streetlights, when a motion alert popped up on a homeowner's phone. Checking the live feed from their Eufy doorbell camera, the homeowner saw a figure walking out of the darkness and down the front path. It was an older man wearing a heavy jacket, stepping slowly toward the front door. Without knocking or making a sound, he walked directly up to the entrance, reached out, and rang the bell at 1:11 a.m. He stood on the unlit porch for a brief moment, waiting in the dark while staring toward the door. Inside, the homeowner was petrified, surrounded by pitch-black silence. Having a stranger ring your bell in the middle of the night raises immediate fears of a home invasion, a burglary attempt, or a stalker casing the property. After the video was posted online under the title, "Scary Man Ringing My Doorbell at 1 a.m., viewers quickly chimed in with theories. While some worried it was a sinister attempt to see if anyone was home, others pointed out a heartbreaking possibility. The man appeared disoriented, suggesting he might have been an elderly neighbor living with dementia or memory loss who got confused and lost in the dark, mistaking the home for his own. Because the porch was unlit, the camera couldn't fully capture his face or where he went after stepping away from the door. No break-in was attempted, but the eerie midnight chime left the homeowner shaken, serving as a stark reminder of how jarring a late-night visitor can be. It was early in the morning when an apartment resident's Ring camera captured a sight straight out of a psychological thriller. In the wide-angle fisheye lens of the door camera, a figure slowly emerges from the darkness of a quiet enclosed apartment stairwell, moving with an unsettling erratic energy. The intruder appears disheveled, wrapped in a white cloth or sheet, and holding various items. But it's what's clutched firmly between their teeth that makes the heart stop. A large, long-bladed knife held horizontally across their mouth, keeping their hands completely free. Without uttering a sound, the figure approaches the homeowner's front door and immediately reaches out, testing the handle to see if it would yield. Finding it locked, she doesn't give up. She turns and creeps over to a neighboring unit. Kneeling down outside apartment 610, she lifts up the welcome mat, methodically searching for a hidden spare key. When nothing is found, she stands up and returns directly to the homeowner's door. Leaning in close to the lens, her eyes are wide, unblinking, and vacant. With the knife still clamped between her teeth, she lingers for several agonizing seconds, repeatedly jiggling and testing the door handle in a deliberate attempt to gain entry. Unable to breach the deadbolt, she abruptly turns away, walking up the spiral staircase into the shadows above to continue hunting for unlocked doors further up the building. The horrifying clip went viral online under the title, "Friendly Reminder to Lock Your Doors," reminding viewers of how close an intruder came to forcing entry. Had any tenant in that complex left their deadbolt unlatched that night, the encounter inside would have turned instantly fatal. On a cold night in northwest London, 23-year-old Aisha Warras was walking home alone along Marne Avenue when she noticed a figure trailing her on a bicycle. The man was 38-year-old Gawali Stanex. He didn't speak, he didn't demand money, he simply closed the distance between them with a disturbing, deliberate speed. Realizing something was wrong, Aisha broke into a sprint, but Stanex accelerated, steering his bicycle directly into her body to knock her to the pavement. Before she could recover, he was on top of her, initiating a relentless, unprovoked physical assault right in the front garden of a nearby house. Her screams brought the homeowner to his door. Seeing the brutal attack unfolding on his lawn, the resident risked his own safety, managed to pull a bleeding Aisha inside, and slammed the door shut. That was when the encounter shifted from a street assault into something deeply unnerving. Denied his target, Stanex didn't flee. He didn't snap back to reality. Instead, he entered a state of complete, unhinged rage. He turned his anger toward a parked Toyota Prius nearby, inflicting thousands of pounds in destruction, before returning to the front porch to finish what he started. For several horrifying minutes, The Ring doorbell recorded the sheer violence of a man trying to breach the house. Stanex repeatedly threw his full body weight against the wooden frame, pausing only to reset before charging again with terrifying force. When the door refused to give, he unhitched a heavy metal bike lock and smashed the camera sensor to pieces in a desperate attempt to erase his presence. When Aisha's father arrived at the scene shortly after receiving her frantic call, Stanex ambushed him instantly, inflicting severe injuries before finally fleeing into the dark. Police eventually tracked Stanex down, resulting in a 3-year prison sentence. But for the victims, the physical recovery was only a small part of the aftermath. What remains is the lingering psychological scar, the realization that sometimes the only thing standing between you and a predator is a thin piece of wood that barely held. It was 4:30 a.m. on April 29, 2023, in a quiet residential neighborhood in El Paso, Texas. The entire street was dead silent when a young woman approached the front door of a suburban home. The footage begins with the woman walking up the driveway, but as soon as she steps onto the concrete porch, her behavior shifts dramatically. She reaches out, presses the doorbell repeatedly, and begins pounding on the wood. She is visibly sobbing, hyperventilating, and frantically glancing over both shoulders into the darkness, looking as though she is being pursued by an unseen predator. Inside the home, the resident woke up to the frantic chime, but rather than immediately swinging the door open, the homeowner checked the camera feed first, a decision that may have saved their life. As the homeowner watched, something deeply bizarre happened on the screen. A set of car headlights appeared in the background, driving slowly down the street. The moment the woman saw the light, her frantic crying instantly stopped. Instead of running toward the street to flag down the vehicle for help, she immediately dropped to her knees and hid behind a thick brick porch column, concealing herself from the passing car. For over 3 minutes, she alternated between sobbing at the door and ducking out of sight whenever any sign of activity appeared on the street. Finally, a sedan pulled into the driveway. Without a word, the woman stood up, stopped crying entirely, walked down the steps, and got into the vehicle before it sped away into the night. The homeowner, thoroughly unsettled, posted the footage to Reddit under the title, "Random Girl Comes to My Door Crying at 4:30 a.m. The video went viral, sparking fierce debate across the internet. Many viewers believed she was a genuine victim of human trafficking or domestic abuse, terrified of being spotted by her captor. But seasoned security experts and law enforcement followers pointed out major red flags in the footage. While police were notified, no official statement was released directly linking her to a specific gang. However, weeks later, local public records revealed that a woman matching her exact physical description, identified as Krista Nicole Cordu, was arrested by the El Paso County Sheriff's Office for burglary of a habitation. Whether she was a victim or a willing participant in a violent setup, the haunting footage serves as a stark warning. In the dead of night, things are rarely what they seem. It's just past midnight on a quiet September night in 2018. A homeowner in a quiet suburban neighborhood is asleep upstairs when a motion notification triggers on his phone. The live feed opens to reveal a disoriented, pale man standing on the front porch. He is wearing a plain grey t-shirt and dark pants. He isn't holding a weapon, nor is he wearing a mask, but his behavior is instantly repulsive. He isn't knocking like a normal guest. Instead, he walks slowly up to the camera, placing his face mere inches from the glass lens. His eyes are wide, unblinking, and glazed over. He begins swaying back and forth on his heels, leaning his forehead against the doorframe. Then, he starts to speak.
What do I do? What am I seeing?
He doesn't yell, he whispers, a low, raspy, disjointed stream of consciousness directly into the microphone. The homeowner, speaking through the Ring camera's two-way speaker system, cuts through the quiet night. The intruder doesn't react to the voice coming from the speaker as a normal person would. He doesn't look around for the speaker. He simply continues staring dead into the camera lens, his mouth twitching as he mutters. For 4 agonizing minutes, the man stands on the porch, ignoring every command to leave, lost in a total trance. He continues whispering broken, nonsensical phrases to himself, pacing small, tight circles on the welcome mat before turning back to stare into the lens. Finally, without any warning or sudden movement, he turns around, walks down the porch steps, and wanders off into the pitch-black yard, melting into the night as silently as he arrived. The homeowner immediately reported the incident to the local police department and posted the raw footage online. Viewers online analyzed the man's vacant expression, slurred speech, and complete lack of spatial awareness. The general consensus was that the man was experiencing a severe psychotic break, extreme sleepwalking, or was under the influence of heavy, mind-altering substances that left him completely detached from reality. Police searched the surrounding neighborhood that night, but the man had vanished without a trace. He was never identified, leaving behind only 4 minutes of chilling footage and the terrifying realization of how close a complete stranger can get to your safe haven while you sleep.